I'm Drew Hornback. I am president of DH Production Designs, and I'm the lighting director for Scotty McCreery.
How did you get into lighting design?
Oh, this is a long conversation, I see. No, so I started programming lights when I was 12, and really kind of got involved in the church world for a little while, and that kind of, that kind of brought a lot of my passion for it, and kind of started the growth of where I am today. And so then I started touring in 2009, and then I've also been in the church world as well.
What were your opinion of lasers before you started working with X Laser?
Absolutely hated them, and I think that's a lot of the reason why I stand behind the X Laser product. With my involvement in the creation of Mercury and where we are today with the software side of it, you don't need it anymore. You just need a console, and that was the biggest thing about me wanting to use lasers. Was I didn't want an external software that I had to also know on top of knowing a lighting console, and I think that's what really drew me to the idea of us working together to help create this and launching it in 2018. So one of the cool things was I got to work with Adam and Andrew, and I started on what's now known as the launch pad in the product line. And we had this little box, and what would happen was it get shipped back and forth between Maryland and Knoxville, Tennessee, and Andrew would code and figure out, okay, how does this work? All right, cool. We get there, and they send it back. My buddy Max and I would test it and make sure it worked, and then we go, oh, we don't like this, so let's try this. And it went back and forth for a while over the course of about a year before the launch in 2018 at LDI. And it was just a cool process to be able to be a part of pioneering something that's really changed the industry.
What makes lasers distinctive as lighting fixtures?
Well, they cut through the haze. Yeah, they cut through anything. If you put it in the right spot, they'll burn through it. But I think the biggest thing is that you're able to cut through the lighting rig as a whole with something that's just a sleek beam, and it creates something that's just more dynamic than your standard moving head fixture.
What kind of feedback have you received about your lasers, either from the production team, artists, or audience, or people you know? Yeah,
I think the coolest thing that we have the pleasure of doing was that Scotty was one of the first artists in the country to even tour with Skyriders. And it's a really cool thing that, thinking country music, you don't really think lasers, but when you look at the show, it adds a big dynamic effect for those intimate moments and for those big moments where you're like, I just need something extra. And, Scotty believed in the product early, which was really cool. And I wasn't a part of it at that time. I've only been with Scotty for about a year and 5 months now. And so I came on after the fact, and now I've kind of helped bring on more ideas with them and that kind of thing. But it's cool to see people every day kind of go, what are those? How do those work? And I think even last night we were up in Canada, and the house lighting tech looked at me and goes, wait, you don't have external software? And I said, no, it's right here in the console. And so I was able to share it with him and kind of show him what it does, and he was blown away that that's an option now.
What surprised you the most about lasers?
They're dangerous. But no, I mean, the good, the bad, the ugly. The cool thing is the sleek looks. I love fine lines. I like crisp gobos, and you don't even have to focus the gobo anymore. It's there. And I think that's what's cool about it, is that it's just so sleek and defining, I guess would be a good word, that it just adds so much to the feel of the show.
What do you think other lighting designers should know about lasers if they haven't used them before, or might be interested in them?
I think the biggest thing is don't be scared. There's been this look for many years of lasers are bad, lasers burn things, lasers aren't good for eyes. But that's what safety zones are for. That's what education is for. And I think that there's no reason to be afraid of it. Just try it. Get a demo of a unit, see if you like it.
What were some of the hesitations that you had? Because you didn't like them before, and then
Yeah.
you were really on with Mercury. So what was like kind of the bridge that made you kind of go, oh, actually, I want to give this a try?
I think the biggest thing is I did not want to learn a different software. And being able to use a lighting console to do exactly what I'm doing with it is huge. Being able to act as a moving light is a game changer for me. There's so many gobos in the content pack that you can just sit there and morph. I think one of my favorite YouTube videos on the X-Laser website is the 100 ways to morph a circle, because it's so true. You don't have to know what you're doing, whereas with other softwares, you're gonna have to learn it. Then you're gonna have to learn how to draw, which I can create art with light. I'm not very good with a pencil. And so being able to just have the shapes already there and morphing them, it's huge.
What are your thoughts on the color mixing and matching with these guys?
So that's one of the bigger things that I think I deal with a lot. So I work with everything from 5s up to 20s. And so one of the big things for me is learning how to color match the different wattages, because you have to learn kind of a little bit more into the color theory of lasers than versus a moving light, right? So the output's going to be based on the diodes and how many diodes you have per color. And so once you figure out the fine balance of what wattage you need for the application. So when I'm doing house of worship things, one of the big design things I love is darker magentas, darker blues, darker reds. So I know that in order to get that, I need to go to a higher powered laser. I'm not going to be able to do that with a 5. So I need to be in that 10 or 20 range in order to pull those off. So it's understanding the tool you need to create the colors that you want. So if you're looking for more just abstract things, something you're not really worried about those deep saturated colors, a 5 watt's great. And it's going to work really well with your lighting rig. But if you want something deeper or more pastel-y, just learning what tools you need for the job.
What are your thoughts on integrating lasers with the rest of your rigs?
So easy. Mercury just allows you to do it flawlessly. I think back to a couple nights ago and you guys were hanging out at one of our other shows, and I zoned so fast that Lewis couldn't even get photos of how fast I was doing it. It's one of those things, you zone quick, you can update your presets. It's a normal thing in my workflow.
Thoughts on zoning, how fast and easy?
Yeah.
What's your average time? Do you time it?
I mean, yeah, I think my zoning time the other day was less than 5 minutes, because everything, yeah, exactly. It's one of those things that if you have it built right in your show file, it's not going to take very long. A lot of times it's me compressing the y-axis and then moving it. I don't really mess with the X as much because I really like having very wide drawn out areas on the x-axis. So mostly it's me updating the y and done.
Have you ever done a show with someone else as the laser person and you only use lighting, or you only light lasers and them only light?
Yeah, so actually Mercury's allowed that a little bit to happen. So there's still some times that I've worked with people that's I'm still not comfortable, and I'm like, that's fine, let's just put another console in the ecosystem and it works. So I'm still able to allow them to control it because we can use multi-user, especially in the AVO world. But allowing, kind of to baby step them with it. And it allows designers that aren't really used to it start to learn, yeah, so I've done the thing, but I've never done it with external software. It's always been an additional lighting console in the same ecosystem.
Sweet. What are lasers better at than other fixtures?
The sharpness. I think that's the biggest thing. I'm very heavily using liquid skies. As you can see possibly behind us, I don't really know kind of what's behind us, but it's literally a liquid sky with another liquid sky that's rotating. It's one of those things that the crisp lines just look so good that you can't get that with a light. The optics of a light do not come close to the optics of a laser.
What limitations do lasers have, or the laser stuff, like Mercury or console?
Yeah, I think the biggest limitation that you see with Mercury is that you need a bunch of MPUs if you're on MA, because the fact that I can run a laser, and 4 advanced builders puts me in an entire universe per laser. I don't see why that's a flaw. I think that that's a cool thing. But I think that there's not a whole lot of other restrictions. It's just deciding how you want to do it. Now, do you want 4 very advanced controls, which is what I've used for a majority of the time that I've used them? Andrew finally got me to switch to basic on this tour, and he goes, just try the basic. I know you love the advanced, but just try it. And so I'm actually running 4 basic builders on this. This is the first time ever on any show that I've run a basic profile, and it works just as great. Yeah.
How or would you say that lasers have changed the way you program from a creative standpoint? Are you finding you're able to create looks that express ideas that you couldn't before?
I think that it changes the way you think about light, because if you're not careful, you're gonna have too much light that's not gonna allow the laser to shine through, right? So you kind of have to think through it a little bit more. It challenges you to be more prepared. But other than that, I think that as long as you keep the thought process of like, I don't want to overpower these, but I want to kind of accent with them, that's kind of how they're used.
Have you enjoyed generally like being able to use lasers in concert with other fixtures, whether it's a wash, bars, pixels, things like that, and how that gives you kind of more creative ability with building it to a rig like this?
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things that's used in this show is that we use them a lot as transition lights. And so I like the opening song is a look where all the lights fade out and then the lasers hit on a snare hit and then they move in and fade out. And so it allows you to do kind of more dynamic things like that in transitions and things like that that you wouldn't normally do with a light, which you could do with a light, but it just adds an extra layer that it's a laser.
Does that like also, have you experienced, maybe not for this tour, but for other shows using lasers specifically, like have you found it advantageous that they can essentially change gobos instantly?
Yeah, I think that's the best part about it, is that you can layer things and it acts more like a media server. A layered media server is probably the best way to describe it. It's instantaneous on any effect, any gobo change, but yet you can still delay the color time. So like you could snap a gobo, delay the color time, and it creates this big transitional look that allows for something you can't do with a light. A light has mechanical pieces to it, which you don't have that in a laser.
It's just using scanners.
Yeah,
Yep.
You just need mirrors.
Yep. What are your thoughts on the physical units themselves?
Oh, they're great. They're very roadworthy. They hold up really well. Scotty has been touring with the same 5 watts since 2019, I think. And they've held up really well. They work. I'm excited for the future and what's to come with these units and seeing them continue to grow into a possible IP65 situation. That would be the coolest thing if we could get that. But they're roadworthy. They hold up.
Does it give you an advantage for load in and load out? Like see you after the show and before, like breaking down, setting up. That the fact that you can rig them just alongside regular lights, like does that give you an advantage?
I think
separate control.
Yeah, I think that it's nice knowing that I didn't have to run any extra cable. I connected to an Ethernet in my loom that's going to my upstage truss, and that's it. I'm running 2 ether stops just because I like to have one on stage and one at front of house. So it's nice to have that little bit of safety aspect. So kind of our cable path goes from the lasers up on our upstage truss to our data rack. The data rack hits the ether stop. The other output of the ether stop hits my snake, which goes to front of house, and that controls my other ether stop.
How has Mercury given you an unfair advantage?
Ooh,
That's a big one.
The unfair advantage. That's a good word, because I think that's very accurate description of what these lasers bring to the table. I think the unfair advantage is that they're bright, they cut through like any other, unlike any other light. It's allowed a lot better programming in terms of just being able to create such dynamic looks. It's kind of very unfair how crisp they look.
Any other thoughts that you would like to leave people with who haven't experienced lasers before, might want to get in, try it out?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just try it. There's no reason to not try it, and it being this easy to control them. If you can program on Onyx, Kansas, ETC, MA, Avo, any of the consoles, it all works together. Just try it. And it's crazy to look at the evolution of the profiles. I'm on, I think, version 28 of our MA profile, just because we're like, what can we do better? And just continuing to learn, like, how do we morph these things into a better unit every day? And being able to watch it evolve. When these started, they only worked on Avo when they launched, and then it went to MA, and then it went to Kansas and Onyx and everything else. And just watching it morph has been so cool. So give it a try. It's pretty easy to set up. There's lots of tutorials that will show you. You literally only plug in a couple of Ethernet cables and you're ready to rock and roll.
Any thoughts about just working with XLaser as a company?
Yeah.
How that has, just your thoughts on that and what the process has been like for the past, 5, 6, 7, 8 years?
Yeah, a while. I think the coolest thing to watch about XLaser is when I started working with Andrew and Adam and starting to kind of develop what has become Mercury with them and walking alongside. It's been so cool to be able to be a part of it. And watching XLaser grow over the last 5 years from what I would consider a mom and pop shop 5 years ago to a pretty standard corporation at this point has been so cool to watch, because the growth that has come of Mercury and how it's allowed XLaser to grow as a company has been mind-blowing. With the addition of Laser Cube and all these other things, it's like it's been cool to watch. The growth, going from the little tiny warehouse that I did a live stream in back in, I guess 2019. Yeah, we came to Maryland and did the live stream, and it was this tiny office, and now it's a big operation with multiple CNC machines and a whole bunch. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's like you go everything from like Scotty McCreery to Coldplay. I mean, it's nothing in between. I obviously work for a couple different companies. My main design firm is DH Production Designs, based out of Knoxville, Tennessee, kind of designing sets and touring packages, corporate events, all that good stuff. But we mostly focus on design and programming. And then, I'm also a part of a company called Max 10 Lights out of Knoxville, where we have a credible inventory of 5s, 10s, 20-watt lasers. And what's cool about the units from Max 10 is we've gone ahead and invested in the MF versions. So all of the units that you can rent from Max 10 also have FB4 in it. So if you ever need something else, you have it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else? That's all I got.
Sweet.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.